Today we're going to speak from 1 Corinthians 2, verse 4 and 5, Mark 11, verse 23 through 26, and James chapter 5, verse 16 through 18. And I want to speak to you this morning on words of power, faith, and love, and why the church must bring back the magic or bring back magic into the ministry. Why the church must bring the magic back into the ministry. Victor Hugo is noted to have said, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." The time is coming, and the time is now that we begin to evolve our awareness, our spiritual consciousness, to embrace words of power, faith, and love as the means by which we can bring magic back into our lives, bring the magic back into the ministry. The psalmist says in Psalms 11, verse 3, "If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do?" We are living in times of great upheaval and destruction. We're living in a time of transition and transformation. Every known institution upon which our society is built upon is undergoing reconstruction, reconfiguration. We are experiencing the shifting and the shaking and the shifting of all known norms. Everything is changing. Everything is in a state of chaos. And this is what our bodies are feeling when we go to work, go to church, and go out into society, and we look at what's happening in the schools, what's happening economically, what's happening politically. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Whether we like it or not, change is happening. The question is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about this transition? Family life is changing. What are you going to do about it? Our religious organizations are changing. What are you going to do about it? The nation itself is under reconstruction. What are we going to do about it? The very nature in terms of how we relate to one another is going through change and transformation. If the foundations be destroyed, the author says, what can the righteous do? It is in this context that I believe that we must rediscover and put back the magic into the ministry. Now, when I use the word magic, I'm sure that may frighten or upset some of you. But I don't want you to be afraid of the word magic or miracles or power. When I say magic, I am suggesting that there are divine forces, God forces, in the very nature and the fabric of the universe. And these forces are available to us in order that you and I might tap into their ever-present power. And practically, we have the ability, if we have the consciousness, to alter reality. One of the great things that I want you to get from this message is that you are made in the image and the likeness of the Creator. And because of that, you have the creative potential by the very thoughts you think, the very words that you use, and the very behavior that you can exhibit, you can change your life. You can change your environment. You can alter reality. That may be a little upsetting, that may be a little mind-blowing, but what is power? Power is the ability to define reality and have others respond to your definition of reality as if it were their own. We, for the past 2,000 years, have been living under other people's definitions of our reality that they have defined for us. We are living in a time today whereby we can truly understand the nature and the fabric of how the universe operates, and we can begin to get control and begin to define a reality for us that is sustainable and suitable for our inhabitation. We no longer have to be subject to outer powers to define our reality. In fact, the very reality that you are living right now, the very reality that you are experiencing right now, it is because you and I have unconsciously created it by the words and the thoughts and the actions we have put into the universe. We can directly and participatorily change and create a reality that we want to live in. You would think that sharing this message to church folk, Christian people, religious people, you would think that that would be understandable, that would be normal for us to hear and to say, yeah, now tell me what else is new. But the fact is that for the most part, we in the church have lost the magic in the ministry. We have lost the magic of life. Let me ask you a question. How many of you truly within your heart really believe what it says in John chapter 14, verse 12? Jesus says, "He who believes in me, the works that I do, you will do." How many of you really deep in your heart truly believe that you can do the works that you read in the Bible that Jesus did? Heal the sick by a word of command. Raise the dead. Walk on water. Yeah. How many of you really believe that? How many of you, when it really counts, when the rubber meets the road and you're in a health crisis, how many of you are quick to call the elders of the church and to have them to pray for you, anointing you with oil to heal you? Or are we first to go to the medicine cabinet, or first to call on a doctor who practices allopathic medicine? I'm not saying that you should not do that, but what comes to your mind first? How many of you truly believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit? And you operate within those gifts, believing that you operate under the power and the enablement of the Holy Spirit within you. So much so that you can lay hands on people and watch miracles happen. Why do I mention all this, brothers and sisters? It's because for the most part, in the 19th and the 20th century, the church has been affected by what is called rationalism and materialism that divorces and puts the power of God, the power of the supernatural into another realm in the past of the days gone by. When we read the Bible, we really don't believe that that worldview that existed in the Bible that we read about can be our experience today. We don't have that. We have actually turned Christian church and ministry, we have turned it into nothing more than political relationships to manipulate one another, or a philanthropic organization to take up money to help the government or help other people do certain works. We have lost the power. And by losing the power, we have lost our distinctive contribution to changing the world. This is why I say we have a form of godliness, but no power. No power. Because of our education and because of our socialization in this world that has no room and has no place for the power of God, we have discounted it even when we come together in church. It has become nothing more than a social organization that has no power. This is why I want you to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 5. Look what it says here, verse 4 and 5. And my speech, Paul speaking, and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom, philosophy, emotionalism. Dr. King, back in the 60s, said there are two kinds of Negro churches. One that freezes over with classism, intellectualism, that has reduced the Christian ministry nothing more than a 20-minute homily to scratch your ego. And the other one burns over with emotionalism that has more energy or more spirit in his hands and feet than it does in his heart. These are the two extremes that we see in our community today. A classist church that's all about sophistication and what you drive and where you live, your zip code, or emotionalism. And that is not the true nature of the church. We have to get back, and we must bring back magic, spirit, power, miracles back into the church. Why? As Paul says, so that your faith should not be in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. Because all that we're talking about is based upon an eloquent speech, getting happy, being emotional, get a good feeling and go back and do whatever you were doing before you came here. We might as well stop calling this the church of God. This is why when you read in the book of Revelation, you find Jesus knocking on the door of the church. Because it's something else than what originally that was started. Paul wants us to have a faith that is not built on the intellectualism or the pulpit sophistication to manipulate people emotionally, but he wanted to have power. Power. That is a distinctive mark of people who really know God. They have power. And what is power? Power is the ability to define reality and have others respond to your definition of reality as if it were their own. For the past 2,000 years, the magic of Christianity, the power of Christianity as a divine force in this world has been systematically, over time, edited out of our conscious awareness. It has been reduced to fit a type of worldview that denies the possibility of the miraculous working through us. But here's the point. In the beginning, that is not how it was. In the beginning of Christianity, it operated on a worldview that was not too dissimilar to what we may call a Buddhist or a Taoist or other forms of religious beliefs. But it has been edited out of our Christian worldview. Why? The Roman imperialists wanted to create a type of Christianity that was compatible with their domination of the hearts and minds and bodies of people. And that's the reason why today, for the most part, our understanding of Christ and the Bible fits so perfectly with European domination. It was changed into a slave religion so that you and I would never know the power in us operating through our bodies, our minds, our mouths. That is a fact. Jesus was separated, the power of Christ, the power of Jesus was separated from the potential of man. And that was for political control, because you cannot control a man or woman who knows and believes and operates in that power in them. But as long as they have to go through someone else, go through the hierarchy of the bishops and the cardinals and the popes of their religion, you can always control them, because they were defining for us our potential. The further we go back to the earliest days of the beginnings of the Christian faith, we discover more than 4 gospels. We discover gospels that were purposely edited out of the Christian canon, called Gnostic gospels. Gospels like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary. These gospels were taken out intentionally, consciously, so that we would be divorced from the inner power of Christ consciousness that operates in all men, women, boys, and girls. Therefore, when you talk and tell people about what is biblical, the truth of the matter is you don't even know what's biblical. Because for the most part, we have never been given and never been allowed to know the true origins of our faith. I don't want you to be afraid of the word magic. About a month or 2 ago, I had an opportunity to discover a collection of texts that had been found in what is called the Nag Hammadi Library. These are books that have been banned from the Bible. Let me share with you the book that these collections have been brought together. This is the name of the book. I want you to see if you can. I'm not telling you to buy this because it may be a little bit too difficult to read, but this is the name of the book. It's called Ancient Christian Magic, Coptic Texts of Ritual Power. Look at the words on the book. Ancient Christian Magic. This is a thought-provoking collection of magical texts from early Christians who lived in ancient Egypt. And it shows the various rituals they practiced, the esoteric healings that they practiced, and the supernatural dimensions that they operated in that was at the very beginning of the Christian experience. Notice the word Coptic is used. Now this will mean something to every one of you so-called African American people. The Coptic is important because some of the earliest formulators and definers of Christian faith were from ancient Egypt, in the city of Alexandria, where it had its original beginning. Christianity is not a white man's religion. It did not start in Europe. It started where you came from. But as Christianity moves westward, and became under the authority of the Latin-speaking and the Roman imperialist empire. These early Christians were killed. It because a new idea was being created, was being formulated, that became the Jesus that we know today. I know that's hard to accept. I know that it's hard to buy into and to listen to, but you will never be a free, powerful people. And out of absolute love, I'm telling you this, so that you can meet the challenges of the day. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And there's never been a time like it is today when you have to rediscover your God inner power of the Spirit of God operating within you. Today, with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, various Gnostic texts, and the new science of quantum physics, a new worldview is re-emerging that recaptures for us all the possibility that you and I are not powerless, weak beings that have no recourse when we encounter struggles in life. That we can truly reshape our reality with words, with thought, and with love. I don't want to take too long and go into all this morning. I know I've given you a lot already. But here are some of the things that I want you to understand that I want to share with you today. Number one, thoughts become things. Number two, words create reality. And number three, love can move mountains. If you can embrace these thoughts into your spirit body, if you can really begin to meditate upon these truths that are now being released back into the world after they have been hidden and stolen for the last 2,000 years, thoughts become things. Words create reality. And love can move mountains. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 23 through 26, we read this profound passage that Jesus says to all of us, "For surely I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed, cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that the things that he says, he will have whatever he says. It shall be done." Did you read that? Are you absorbing that? This is what the Master says. Whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believe that those things he says will be done, he shall have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them. Whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them. Don't believe that you receive them when you get them. Believe it when you say it. In other words, let the words of your mouth and the confession of your heart be united. He says, and you will have them. Now, either Jesus is a liar, a lunatic, or he knows something. As a matter of fact, what we're reading here is the biblical version of what quantum physics would tell you, that the universe we live in is a universe that vibrates with sound, with words, with thought.
That's right.
This passage is not to be taken metaphorically. It's to be understood literally in terms of the power of words, and there are words of power. There are unique words of power that hold frequencies that literally change matter. And when you speak those words, it will alter reality. Our lives are the manifestation of words or sounds that have shaped energies of thought into physical form. Go back and read Genesis 1, starting at verse 2 and verse 3. The scripture says, now the world was without form and void. In other words, it was shapeless and it was substanceless. And darkness, that's chaos, potential, all potential, moved over the face of the deep. That's the primordial condition of matter. It had no shape. It had no substance. And God said, God spoke, God put a vibration out into the universe and said, let there be light. And there was light. The very nature of reality, of what we call the universe or the multiverse, is shaped by sound frequencies. Light, sound, creates matter, creates worlds, creates reality. Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 1 through 3. Listen to what it says. In the beginning was the Word, a sound. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Divine sound, conscious sound, consciousness, divine consciousness. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. Now, what does that say to you, brothers? Are you listening? What does that say to you? The very thing that you touch, including your body, the very things that you look at with your eyes, in essence, and any scientist who truly studies these things will tell you, is nothing more than a wiggle, a vibration of thought energy. So the true essence of you is not physical. It is word sensitive. That's what I get from the scriptures. That what we call solid matter, before it's solid, it was a wave. It is a vibration. And there were certain sounds that caused certain things to take different shape, including our body. Not all words or sounds are the same, but they all create. But there are certain words or sound which, if you knew them, they hold the matrix of the very structure of the environment. In essence, science knows that the universe we live in is more like a computer program than anything else. Composed of bits or qubits of information and energy, that if you knew these words of power, you can cause mountains to evaporate. Because all a mountain is a condensation of sound energy. And that is what Jesus knew. And in his own way, that is what Jesus is telling each and every one of us. Early in the passage, Jesus walked by a tree and he spoke a word of power that caused that fig tree to wither. And the disciple says, how you do that? And he says to them, if you say it and believe what you say, that it is so, you can speak to that mountain and tell it to be cast into the sea, and it will do that. That is the power that the Master says that you and I can have if we don't block it. And that is what the years of European Christianity has done to all people. It has created a mental block between God and you, where you don't know your power because it is blocked, and therefore your power of your words and your thoughts don't manifest the kind of life that you want to live consciously. But at the same time, unconsciously, you speak doubt, and you speak fear, and we speak hate, and we speak insecurity, and it takes on thought form, and it becomes a living thing in your life. I tell kids and my own children who sometimes creates events in their life that they don't like and they suffer. I said, you can change it anytime you get ready. And I say to these young people in here, you can change it anytime you get ready if you just wake up and begin to realize the power that you are using destructively to create a life of suffering that you don't have to live. Imagine what happens if we really took seriously what it says in Matthew 18, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name. I am in the midst, and whatever you ask shall be. Imagine what happens if we had a group of people who truly understood their power, who truly understood how to use words of power, how to use thoughts and ideas to really create a new environment. Imagine what we could do. But it's because we have this virus in our head, because we have this virus in our heart, we work against our own salvation. It is designed to be that way so that those who truly rule the world can continue to have authority over you and I because we don't know the full story. It is imagine what prosperity you could have. Imagine what health you can have. Imagine what relationships you could have if you could get the mountain of doubt, the mountain of fear, the mountain of insecurity, the mountain of ignorance, if you could move that. Imagine what could happen to your finances. Imagine what can happen to your relationships. Imagine the possibilities, brothers and sisters. This is what has to be reversed within us. Why? Because of one profound thought. Thoughts become things. What are you thinking? In the gospel, in the book of James, chapter 5, verse 16 to 18, look what it says there. It says, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. Then it says, the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous person avails much. Elijah was a man with a nature like yours. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain. For 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. How did it happen? Because Elijah spoke a word. He put forth a thought frequency that took shape, that could stop the rain, that could start the rain. In other words, he understood a power that if he spoke it, nature would respond. Do you realize, brothers and sisters, that you have the authority and you have the power whereby even the weather itself will respond to you? That's why I said Elijah was a man like us. But the virus in your mind says, no. That was for Elijah because he was special. That was for Jesus because he was different. He's the Son of God. Well, who do you think you are? This is what I'm trying to say to you that was taken from our consciousness. Our ability to affect change extends even to the exercise of power in conjunction with nature. The prophet Elijah was able to affect weather patterns with his thought and words. He was a man just like us. Elijah used the example of healing power of his word to say to elders. The context of this verse, it says, is that as Elijah used his words to create changes in weather, elders in the church, not just because they're old men, but elders, people who have been spiritually trained in the science and the spiritual science of words of power, they could pray over you using certain tools, anoint your head with oil, healing oil, and could heal you. Stop and think about it. Stop and think about it, brothers and sisters. What did people do before the advent of penicillin? What did people do before the advent of modern medicine? How are people able to live in some places 70, 80, 100 years old? How were they able to overcome certain diseases when they didn't have what we call a pharmacy or a drugstore? They had a relationship with God. They had a relationship with nature. They had a relationship with the universe, whereby they were able to know what to do. And they had a belief. I used to wonder sometimes, because when I went to seminary, and I would ask these kind of questions. But the answer they had in the school that I went through was that was for that time. God does not work that way anymore because we got the Bible. What was interesting was one of our top professors, I won't give his name, one of our top professors, who was an expert in hieroglyphics, Coptic, Greek, and Hebrew. He was one of the few professors who was given the authority to look at the Dead Sea Scrolls and some of the Gnostic texts. Everybody could look at them. That's why when I talk to you as people in this church, and I tell you what has not been shown to you and what you don't know, I'm trying to give you a heads up on the level of control that exists in religious circles to keep the people ignorant. But anyway, he had this opportunity. He later left the school, and he put out a book called Surprised by the Spirit. Because he had grown up in a rationalistic religion that we call evangelicalism, that had taken the spirit out of the magic, out of Christianity. But as he went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, he discovered something in the ancient Egyptian texts that, apart from those skills of interpretation, the average person couldn't see it in the English translated text. And it caused him to redevelop a relationship. Now, this is a white man now. Well, that you know, this is not a black man. So y'all can take this as gospel now. But the fact is that it caused him to rethink how he was approaching God in the Bible. Now, he didn't stop being a Christian. He just began to express a deeper relationship with the Spirit than he had ever done before. How many of us realize in here today that there are people who are among us who have developed their spiritual consciousness to such an extent that they know the secrets of healing? They know certain words, they know certain herbs, they know certain things that you can do. Apart from surgeries, apart from medication, apart from the allopathic tradition, to know how to cause changes and healings in your body by using meditation and sound frequencies to affect the organs of your body. I told you last week about how Dr. Maruso Emoto took words, put it on certain bottles of water, and on one bottle of water he put the word "I hate you." On another bottle of water he put the word "I love you," and on the other bottle of water he left it blank. And they took that water and they measured it, and that is, they froze it and they examined it under the electron microscope. The water that had been prayed over, the water that said "I love you," took a crystalline shape and structure like you read about in Genesis 1. The water that had nothing on it and the water that had "I hate you" was in a chaotic state. Think about if words can do that to water, and your brain is 85% water. The organs of your body are bathed in an ocean of water. Think what that means when you say, I hate you. Think what that means when you walk around with bitterness and fear and sadness and depression in your body. Think what your thoughts are doing to you. Which brings me to my last point. Love moves mountains. It's one of the things that I've discovered, that many people who know what I'm talking about, and many of them say that they don't get that effect, they don't get that change. They say the words, they have the thoughts, but they don't get the effect of it. And the question is why? One of the things that is so simple yet so profound, the greatest force in the world that causes healing, that causes prosperity, that unblocks the potential in you and the flow of the Spirit in you is love. If you go back and you look at what Jesus said in Mark 11, verse 25 and verse 26, if you go and look at what James teaches us in chapter 5, verse 16, it says in both of these verses, let me read the one in verse 25 and 26. And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also forgive you your trespasses. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive you your trespasses. And then it says in verse 16 in James 5, confess your trespasses one to another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. What is that telling you? That condition, not just simply saying the word or believing the word, but nothing gives your words more energy and power is when you unblock your soul with forgiveness. I submit to you that the reason why many of us are not flowing more profoundly in the Spirit to create a positive life for ourselves is because we are holding on to negative energy that has stagnated within our energy body and is blocking the power of God. The next time you find yourself sick, ask yourself, what am I holding on to? What am I not willing to release? What am I not willing to let go within my consciousness? Is it some sin that I have done that I'm still holding aught against myself and I won't forgive myself? Is it some unforgiveness that I'm holding on to about my upbringing or my anger toward my family or my father, my mother, my parents, or my husband or my wife? In other words, begin to do a soul search within yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, when you speak words of healing and when you speak words of power, they are supposed to work. If it is not working, the question then is, what is blocking the power and the flow and the energy of the Spirit of God that is moving through my body? Where is the blockage occurring? And do your research. This is why you pray and this is why you sing the song, Lord, give me a clean heart. Look inside of me. You begin to examine yourself, not out of judgment, not out of fear, but because you want to be whole. It's because you want to heal. Some of your diseases and some of the reoccurring problems in your finances and in your relationships are because there are blocked energy forms within your soul, within your energy body that you are holding on to. Everybody okay? This is what it's trying to say to us. What blocks the force of the miraculous in our life? What keeps us suffering and hurting and sick? What blocks the flow of prosperity in your lives? Many of you should be millionaires. Many of you should be rolling in dough, as they say. Many of you should be living a prosperous life, but hate can block it. Fear can block it. The fear of being successful, the fear that I'm not worthy of success, the fear that I'm not worthy of money, I'm not worthy of promotion. Those thought forms, those emotions can become like sticky things. It become like, what do you call that in your body when you have a clogged artery? It can become like clogged artery. It can become like cholesterol that's blocking the plaque. Excuse me, that's what I'm looking for. Plaque that is blocking the arteries of your body. Therefore, you don't get full flow of the power of God, and it can set up strokes, spiritual strokes, whereby you don't get the full potential running through you. So, what are we holding on to? Is it grief? Is it anger? Is it sadness, bitterness, hate in our hearts? Some prayers for healing, prayers for prosperity, prayers for a better relationship will not move until we remove negative emotional blocks of unforgiveness we have toward each other, and more importantly, toward ourselves. This is something that can't be done in the power of your own ego or your own flesh. It has to come from within here. And I truly do believe that a lot of times, a lot of sicknesses and a lot of problems that we have in our lives is God really causing us to sit down to rethink how we feel, what we are feeling. We must learn to let go. We must learn to laugh. We must allow ourselves to learn that holding on to pain of the past into the present blocks the divine flow of God in our lives and in our lives toward others. Now the question is, how do I let go of abuse as a child? How do I let go? That's a very serious thing. How do I let go of racial animosity? How do I let go of financial poverty, growing up that way, and the ridicule associated with it? How do I let go of past sins that I've made, mistakes that I've made along the way? How do I let go? Well, let me put this in front of you then. Are you without sin? Do you have any secret sins? So while we're talking about I'm mad at him, I'm mad at her, ask yourself, is my life without sin? Have I not hurt someone? Remember what the scripture says. If you don't forgive them, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. How bad do you want to be healed? See, a lot of people say they want to be healed, but how bad do you want to be healed? Are you more willing to hold on to the hurt and the pains of the past than to be free right today? Is being delivered or set free from pain, sickness, and death more important than being mad and angry about what took place 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago? Remember the law of attraction. God is not mocked. For whatever you sow, that you shall also reap. And that's what the scripture is saying. God will not forgive you if you don't forgive others. He is invoking, Jesus is invoking the powerful law of attraction. You know how you read in Sunday school this morning about the plagues that came upon Egypt and everything? God didn't put a plague on them. They put a plague on themselves. In other words, to all of us, God puts a mirror up to us. It's a mirror. And the life that you are living is a reflection of the thoughts and the words you've been thinking and saying. So I ask you, how bad do you want to be healed? How bad do you want to be delivered? In other words, let go and let God heal you. Let go and let God empower you. Let go and let God move you through the pain and suffering. I close today and I leave you with this word. The mind of a mature or perfected man is like a mirror. It grasps nothing. It just simply reflects. It does not hold on to anything. Therefore, the perfected man can act without effort.